likes to pull up a chair and sit back and relax as always. And welcome
to the SPMA podcast finale. But it's a little different. We're doing it virtual, and we have amazing fourth-year students to give us insight about the program and the industry.
In my first year, I actually started on with the Sport Management Council. If you haven't heard about it already, it's amazing. Plug, plug, plug. And through that, I was able to network and actually get a job with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I kept this job throughout the duration of my undergrad, and it was very beneficial to me. I also looked at minoring while taking the SPMA program, which was amazing. So I'm graduating with a minor in media studies. So if that's something that you have an interest in, I definitely would encourage you to do so because it is amazing and a great opportunity. While I was taking the SPMA program, I participated in a fair bit of extra courses, not required, but I definitely would say they're a good thing to look into. So I took part in the major games course where I helped out with the Masters Indigenous Games, as well as the SPMA 3 PO2, I believe, placement program. Which was cool, and it gave me a lot of opportunities to network. And through that networking, I actually found my mentor. Her name is Erin, and she's actually one of the reasons that I came to the sport management program. So it was kind of cool to make that connection, which I actually made on Alumni Day, which was really, really cool. And through that, I was able to get my internship, which I'm currently just finishing up. It's with the Canadian Olympic Committee as their social media intern. And I'm just preparing for graduation, whatever that may look like at this time. But that's a little bit about me.
Experiences kind of range across the board. So with the programs with Tyler and Caleb, I was part of the Brock Sport and Business Association, which is not a club directly associated with the program, but kind of a mix between SPMA and the Goodman School. So I was fortunate to do that. Had some great opportunities, great experiences with the group. I was able to take in various networking events and such like that. So I got to meet a lot of great people in the industry. I also had a great opportunity working with athletics. So I was a part of the event management team. So Badgers was a student group that was more promotional based kind of group for varsity games such as basketball. Our primary focus was basketball, but we also did volleyball and ice hockey. And then I kind of also got involved more with the school. So as I guess we'll kind of talk about later, I was also a part of BUSU as a volunteer my first year with them, and then as an engagement coordinator this year. So the experiences kind of range, and they were great experiences. And there's some experiences I would never kind of take back because they really added to my university experience.
I'm Tyler Appleby. I'm from Mississauga, Ontario. A little bit about me. In fourth year, like the rest of everyone here, my main way that I really got involved in the program was, like Alan said, through the Brock Sport and Business Association, or BSBA, or Brock SBA, whatever anyone knows it by. And I just started as a normal club member, took over as president my second year, and kind of have been trying to grow it since then. Also got involved with a company called Primetime Sports and Entertainment in my third year as their corporate partnerships intern, and been helping them with their various events, including their big conference they have in Toronto in November. So I've been there the past few years. And then most recently been involved with the Canadian Elite Basketball League as their operations intern, which has been quite the experience due to the current situation in the world right now, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, but big experience so far. And probably one of the most important and impactful experiences I've had is working at Live Nation at the Budweiser stage in RBC Echo Beach on the event staff, and then most recently as an event staff supervisor. So that kind of embodies sort of my resume of the past few years. In terms of what I want to do after school, I'm starting to lean more into the music side of the entertainment industry, although I do love sport. Obviously, I will probably still go for the sport industry as well. But the blessed thing, I guess, about having some time is we get a little bit of time to reflect on what we really want to do and what our passions are. And I think I'm slowly starting to figure that out, which is good. So
bit of a tongue twister to say. Parents didn't think it out before they named me. So I, as everybody else here, is in SPMA. And like Hope, I don't know if Hope came kind of to the same way to get to a minor as I did, but I was browsing Facebook and an article told me it was good to minor in something, and didn't really read it because I'm not a big reader, but I said, all right, I liked child and youth studies. And so year 2 kind of got enrolled in that. It was a good experience to kind of put your extra credits towards something. And I would, to any new SPMA kids coming in, I would recommend getting a minor, because I think Hope can probably attest that it's kind of nice to be able to put those extra credits that aren't necessarily towards your major in SPMA towards something, and you can kind of feel like you're being productive with those extra credits. So yeah, minor in Chiz. And like Alan and Tyler, I was a part of the Brock Sport and Business Association. Tyler and I just kind of became buddies in second year, and he kind of brought up that he was looking to get some new people on the team. So another big thing is I would just, to any new students, kind of just say yes to anything. So I kind of just went in with saying yes. I had no idea what it was about or what anything entailed, but one of the best yeses of university, because I got to meet a lot of good people through it and have a lot of good experiences. Yes, things I did in school, a lot of intramurals, never won a t-shirt, but I think I probably played on 30 teams and lost every one of them. So pretty humbling experience, but you win some, you lose some. With that, my third year is when I kind of started to get my act together a little bit, and I did a partial internship with the Hamilton Bulldogs. Because I'm from Hamilton. That was part of a course credit that I did. It was really good. I got to be a part of the sales team and spent both my reading weeks there, learned some of the game day operations. So just kind of got a bit of a feel for what it feels to work like in junior hockey. And that kind of brought me to the internship in fourth year, where I did it with a company organization called Wasserman, which is a sport agency in Toronto. They're global, but the one I worked at was in Toronto, as part of the golf management side. And yeah, just a fantastic, experience. I think we're going to kind of move in later to kind of more about what that kind of entailed. But yeah, that's kind of my rock experience in a quick nutshell.
And welcome to part 2 of the season finale of the SPMA Council podcast. Let's go to the pride of Joyland Beach, Ontario, Erin O'Connell.
So I just am graduating my 4th year at Brock, and probably in October, hopefully we walk the stage. Really, really hope so. But I actually do have my internship this summer, so I'm not quite finished. But I enjoyed myself at Brock for the time that we could be there, and I'm sad that it ended the way that it did.
Next on the panel, we have incoming master's students, Keegan Dalal. Not a big deal. How's it going, Keegan?
Good. What about yourself? You're looking snazzy there, Will. Yeah, but kind of same as Erin. A bit disappointed to not have a chance to say goodbye to everyone. It's nice having this little podcast to kind of get together one last time. I know everyone on here pretty well, so it's going to be a fun little night. And I'm just excited to start my master's.
All right, moving on to our third panelist. We have from Hamilton, Ontario, Hayley, Michie. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Will?
I'm good.
Awesome. I just finished up my internship, so I'm completely done school. Brock U alum, if you will. And looking forward to hopefully getting out of the industry whenever that may happen after this COVID is gone. But
very nice. And last but certainly not least, from Toronto, Ontario, William Gatchalian. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. I know many of the panelists here. I just wrapped up my 4th year at Brock. I'm currently working with Canada Basketball again for the summer, and I'm actually returning to Brock alongside my friend Keegan down there for my master's in September.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Not a big deal, but just something I decided to do in light of the COVID situation. So things didn't exactly work out the plan, but I'll be back in September, and I'm thrilled to be back.
Let's move on to the main part of the podcast. We're going to start off with a couple of individual questions centered around a certain number of themes.
Theme is called What Have You Done Lately? So Hope, let's start with you. What was your experience interning / working with the Canadian Olympic Committee, and what is your advice for students thinking about completing an internship?
Awesome. So my experience has been definitely a unique one, given everything that's going on. But I'll talk a little bit about before this whole pandemic happened, and then I'll reflect on what's going on now. So working with the Canadian Olympic Committee has been surreal, to say the least. I was a little overwhelmed my first day when you walk up. Anybody who gets the chance to visit their office, it's quite interesting. They've got the rings on the door, and you're just kind of like, wow, this is actually happening. But the community surrounding the Canadian Olympic Committee was just amazing. They're so welcoming and open to sharing their experiences. There was a wealth of knowledge behind those doors, and I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity to dip into that knowledge a little bit. I wish I had had more time in the office, but it was definitely an amazing experience and a great opportunity to grow. I feel that everything that's going on in the world right now was cool to see, and just kind of the planning that goes around what happens when you A, decide to pull your athletes out of the Olympics, and then B, the Olympics gets postponed altogether. Just seeing the crisis management and the behind the scenes of that stuff was definitely kind of very interesting, and I'm very thankful. I'm looking at the positives of the whole situation. So that was an interesting experience for me, and I can't be any more grateful for the opportunity. Some advice that I may give to students: I actually wasn't thinking about doing my internship. In my mind, I was like, I have tons of experience, I don't need it. Like, I'd rather get a job and just work. But I had absolutely no idea the amount of experience that you gain from it. I feel like myself specifically, I worked with the digital team, and I didn't necessarily have the most knowledge. I thought, oh yeah, I know digital, but you get into the real world and you're like, wow, I actually know nothing. I know the theory behind it, but learning how to actually apply the theory that you learn in class was definitely something that I valued through my internship. So any advice for students that are thinking about an internship, reach out to somebody who you know. I'm sure any of the people on this call would be happy to talk to you about it, who have done an internship, and really talk to them and get to know the ins and outs of what an internship actually brings to you, because it's an amazing opportunity that the program offers. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I had grabbed it a little bit sooner and maybe tried to pull 2 internships out of the program if possible, like Tyler did, because it was very smart on his part. But yeah, that's a little bit of advice I can give the students.
So Alan, why did you want to work in student government with BUSU? Any key takeaways, and would you encourage students to apply within the student union if given the opportunity?
Okay, so it's a great question. So I guess really to start off, why I wanted to start with BUSU, it kind of really stems with the idea of volunteering. So as you may remember, Vince and Hope, we were both all 3 of us were volunteer leads in our 3rd year for orientation week or O week, and that was an experience. But really, a lot of that interest kind of falls back to even further, I would say. Throughout the program, I had the opportunity to kind of volunteer in various positions where I got to kind of interact with people a little bit more on a more personal basis. So during my first year was a World Cup of Hockey in Toronto. I was part of the fan village through their team, and then kind of kept on going with various opportunities where I got to kind of interact with people. But kind of leading into BUSU in our 3rd year, when I was volunteering as a volunteer lead, I really got the opportunity to kind of connect with first year students, especially through the events that BUSU was presenting and how that kind of kicked off your university experience. So from a volunteer perspective, usually there's that kind of sense like, oh, I'm spending a couple hours here, I could be spending it doing something else, and such like that. But really, I value those hours. They were a great time. They were a great kind of opportunity to talk to people, kind of get a feel of what it's like to be in a position where you're introducing students to the university life. Because I know for myself, the first BUSU event I remember going to was a paint party. And that was a lot of fun, and I got to meet a bunch of people. I actually met a couple friends there that I continue to talk to now and throughout the 4 years. which was great. And because of that interest and that experience, that kind of led me to the student engagement coordinator at BUSU this year. So really what title entails is I'm kind of the volunteer coordinator for BUSU. So whenever events kind of needed to have volunteers present, I kind of coordinate who was there, their schedules, and I would submit hours to Experience BU. That was the primary kind of role in my position, but really I was kind of all over the place. You would see me at various events, kind of helping out, set up, clean up, you know, entertain the crowd, speak to the crowd, and kind of enjoy the events. But really why I kind of wanted to work with BUSU was to be a part of the university experience for first year students, because, you know, looking back at my experience, it was a huge kind of opportunity to really get my feet in the ground. And that's what I kind of really wanted to do, and kind of set a foundation for first year students. Yeah, really, I kind of summed up the first two parts of that question there. Really why I kind of wanted to work with BUSU, but also my key takeaways. It's, you know, being a part of an experience, being a part of a great team, but also kind of applying what I've learned in SPMA, especially through the kind of the relationship aspect of it, because we're kind of looked at, you know, human resources, how to deal with people, how to motivate people. So that's really kind of where I really applied it. When it comes to your last part of the question, where I encourage students, obviously, yes, not only because it's a part-time job, and you do get a little bit of spending money, which is great, especially with students and the kind of budgets we're facing, but it's also the experience you get, and that experience you get interacting with students, because you don't know what one event could do for one student who's probably having a really bad day, and they could come out to an event like the concert this year. I think my favorite concert this year was Bulo during Frost Week, right? Let's say, for example, you're not having a great day and it's the weather isn't great, but you come out to the event, you enjoy your time, and as a part of the team that kind of is part of the operation side, it's really kind of breathtaking, and it's an experience that I'll continue to kind of lean on.
Great. So Ty, with the Canadian Elite Basketball, with your internship, so any positive or negative learning experiences?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the positive side. There's not really much negative, to be completely honest with you, aside from the current situation. So I'll just talk more about the positive side of it. So like, just being completely transparent with it. When I was going for my internship, I had another internship in mind, and I was sort of banking on that, and I was kind of hoping for that as the first semester of this year kind of went on. And unfortunately, things didn't necessarily work out the way that I wanted it to, but luckily I got in with the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and maybe at the time I didn't give it as much credit as I should have, because it like truly was like a life-changing experience for me. One positive side of it, for example, would be they allowed me to like be as creative as I wanted to be with all the tasks that I had. And even though I was like an operations intern, technically, I worked a lot with the marketing department as well. So, for example, the marketing director would come to me and be like, hey, like we need ideas for this. So can you think of some ideas and get back to me later on in the day? And I would be kind of at my desk being like, oh man, like what am I going to do here? But they allowed me to be as creative as I wanted to be and as I could. And in turn, I think I learned a lot about myself and a lot about like what I can actually offer a department or someone like that in an organization. Another positive thing too with that company is they treat everyone with the same level of respect and they trust everyone. So me kind of going in a little like hesitant, a little quiet on my first few days because I didn't really know the culture or the environment that I was going into. they treated me right away with the same level of respect that they treated everyone with. And it kind of made the experience just all the better for it. I keep going about positive things about the internship, but kind of hopping over to the more negative side. Really, aside from the current situation with this coronavirus, there hasn't really been anything negative, to be completely honest with you. In times where maybe it was a little slower, that kind of gave me time to do other things that I had going on, which was good. And it also gave me the opportunity to just take initiative. And an example of that is one time there was maybe an hour or so one day where I wasn't really doing much. So I decided that I'm just going to make a running Word document of all these different marketing ideas that I had for the league. And then that turned into me going to the marketing director and saying like, hey, I have all these ideas for you. If you want, I can show you them. And then that led to him holding a board meeting where I had to present all these ideas to him and the sponsorship director and other people like that. So kind of turning a negative thing into a positive thing, having a little bit extra time where I'm not really doing much turned into an experience that I probably wouldn't have had if I hadn't have taken the initiatives.
All right, Caleb. So with a good number of students within the program interested in the agency side of the sport industry, what was your experience like, and what was your role in golf management at Wasserman and Tail?
Just to, I guess, preface first, kind of the same experience as Ty, actually. Wasserman it was just kind of not my top option for most of the semester. I was looking at a couple places. There were probably actually 2 or 3 places ahead of Wasserman. And, looking back, hindsight's 2020, Wasserman 100% was the best one for me. But again, I feel like whoever's watching this, just like make sure you keep your options open and be open to a bunch of different things. Cause like Ty said, like he was so sure. I remember talking to Ty around that time and he was so sure that this was the best thing for him. And looking back, obviously the CEBL was a lot better. So, things work out the way they should and God's got a plan for everyone's life. So I would just say, keep your options open and don't try and pigeonhole yourself, because looking back, Wasserman was the best 4 months I could have asked for. With that being said, I guess to summarize kind of my daily tasks, I worked for a PGA golf agent, and I would say that 50% of my work was directed for him and his accommodations, and then 50% of my work was for eight of his 14 clients. The other 6 were taken care of by a lady in North Carolina. And so basically just, like some of it was great, some of it was terrible. I was on a lot of, calls with rental car companies and Delta and hotels, and, a lot of it was maybe not the most exciting stuff, but, being able to say that I booked the hotel that Nick Taylor stayed in when he won Pebble Beach is pretty cool. So a lot of cool stuff as well that comes with the job, and being able to work for golfers like Tony Finau and Nick Taylor. Finau was actually, I think, 13th in the world at one point. So pretty cool to, he was ahead of Tiger Woods. So pretty cool to work for people like that. And that was, I guess, kind of the day-to-day with the golf management. With that, I knew that I had a great opportunity at Wasserman, so I really did my best to also branch out. And I wasn't doing work for other people, but just getting to know other people who are in the agency. Wasserman does a lot of really cool stuff, and just kind of branching out to the team sports part, and becoming buddies with Connor McDavid's right-hand man and Norm Powell's marketing guy, and just trying to kind of build these relationships. I basically just kind of went into the internship just kind of trying to be a sponge and learn everything that I possibly could, because all the people in the office obviously knew a lot more than I did. So I kind of just went in knowing my place in the organization and doing what I could to help out, and kind of, putting my blood, sweat, and tears into it. I was watching our clients on the weekends, and I was trying to stay late when I could, and I was trying to, do the best that I could for the position that I was in. So anybody looking to get into the agency side, like, it was like the coolest thing ever. Like, I absolutely loved it. There were, Norm Powell was walking around in the office, and a lot of definitely really cool things that happened. I was on calls with, a lot of really cool people. So it was really cool to kind of just learn the experience to try and not be, starry-eyed and looking at these people like they're, the coolest people in the world. Because when you're in sport management, you can actually be working for these people, which is really cool. So long story short, really cool experience. And anybody who's looking into the agency side, I would definitely recommend doing so for your internship.
And William, I guess we'll start with you. For the past 3 years, you were involved with the Brock men's basketball team. What are your main roles and responsibilities, and how you suggest students seek out similar opportunities within Brock sports?
Absolutely. So actually, I have 4 years. I've worked with the Brock team since my first year at Brock.
4 years. Okay, nice. My mistake.
So kind of how I got started was in my first year in SPMA 1P92. As we all know, there's that lovely little volunteer service that we have to do, the 8 hours. And so I decided that I wanted to sort of not jump at the first opportunity that presented itself, but kind of look around and see what other opportunities they were. And I've loved basketball ever since, I was a kid. So I emailed Coach Charles Kissy and asked him if he had anything open. And initially he said no. But a couple of weeks later, he got back to me and said, actually, I have something for you. You can film practice for an hour every day for a month. And I'm just like, that works. We'll do it. And from there, I transitioned into the full-time film coordinator for that year. The next year, I transitioned into more so film coordinator, but also operations coordinator. So a little more of what I'm doing today. And so with that, it was sort of overarching operations for the team. Really great thing. We got to go to nationals that year. So trying to figure that whole thing out. And the biggest thing I like to tell people is I had no idea what I was doing. And I just kind of figured it out along the way. And that comes with a lot of jobs that I found. You may not know how to do it, but you kind of fake it till you make it. And I am where I am today because I was able to fool enough people into thinking that I can actually do what I do. And clearly it's worked thus far. In terms of getting involved there's always opportunities with varsity teams. I think the biggest thing, my piece of advice is always just to reach out and network. As important as it is to network sort of out in the world, out in the industry, these days it's extremely important to network within your university. And taking that first step, and people at Brock Sports especially, they've been super accommodating, super helpful, and they want to help you. But in a classroom of 300 people, they're not going to pick you out and ask you if you want to pursue an opportunity. You have to really initiate that yourself. And once you put yourself out there, the worst thing someone can say is no, and then you move on to the next. And I was just lucky. I was, 1 for 1. And, for the past 4 years, I've worked with the team, and we'll see what the future holds, but I'd love to be back. And sort of, it's been a huge developmental tool for me moving to where I am today, especially with Canada basketball and everything. It's just been an amazing experience.
Very, very nice. Very nice. And moving on to Erin. This year you were Director of Events for Student Council. What was the experience like developing events for the student body? And are you happy with the process Council took with it this year?
So, as you probably know, Will, you were just talking about it, just operations in general is tasking. But looking at it from the events point of view, where you're doing every bit of planning all the way through and incorporating everybody else as you go, it was extremely daunting at sometimes. It was terrifying, exhausting, frustrating sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's extremely satisfying to be able to know that all of that work was worth it. And I mean, I had an exceptional group of people that I got to work with some incredible skills that you wouldn't even know until they step up and said something. Like you said, like you have to put yourself out there, and there are so many people in the group that would reach out to me individually that were afraid to speak up in a group, and that's totally fine. But as soon as they did, I realized like the plethora of things that they could offer the group. And it's encouraging those people is another thing. It's like not even just for yourself, but you need to make sure that other people are on the same page as you, and communication lines are always there. So I really did enjoy myself in the position, but understandably it was difficult at times, and you have to learn from yourself and from other people. So
I do want to move on to Keegan here and touch on your experience with A to Z Learning, where you were an admin and workshop peer employee. What skills did you sort of learn there, and why should current students take advantage of this resource available at Brock?
Yeah, like you said, Will, I think everyone should do their best just to get involved in what they can, you know? It's just kind of positioning yourself for the future. So personally, I went to A to Z Learning to improve my presenting skills. I wanted to go into marketing and consumer behavior, so I thought presenting would be a great skill to learn. So I went to them at a job fair. I said, hey, can I do workshops? And said, no, you have to be a tutor. And then a few months later, I was doing workshops, so it all worked out. But I think just the big thing is realizing what you get out of your tuition as well. Like a lot of people come to university and there's so much you don't know and it's overwhelming, right? And there's so many resources on campus. Like first thing you should do if you're a new student, go to Career Zone and get your resume updated. So I went there to do workshops, but I learned so much just about like study skills, study habits.
Moving on to Hayley, here we go. Tell us about your time with SPMA Hub. How have you been able to contribute to this brand new organization?
Yeah, for sure. So I started with SPMA Hub prior to my fourth year. Different story than everybody else here. I was actually approached by the president of SPMA Hub. I had no connection with them. It led to this partnership, I guess. And I decided to start creating content with them, something very out of my comfort zone, but I did it anyways, which is number one, getting involved. Step out of your comfort zone.
Take risks too.
But yeah, so what I do at SPMA Hub, I typically interview professionals from all over the globe, so Canada, USA, and Europe. I've had a heavy focus on professionals in the US due to all the recommendations coming to me, and if anybody wants to recommend anybody else, I'd be happy to interview them.
So I guess that concludes the SPMA Council finale, part one. Our thanks to our wonderful guests. Thank you to everyone who will be watching. From us fourth years to you, it's not goodbye, but it's definitely see you soon.